Okay. We found the link. Then the other question I got was yeah, it's been a month without videos. Okay. Some people have asked. Okay, that and do we have all the videos even from before there, or is that another channel? Or it's a mix? We have the videos up to 1st of December, and before that, this one is for the conferences. Yep, okay. Maybe we should have a channel or put them under the Orchard subscription. Good, this was the first question. Demos. Chris is here. He will do a live preview demo. I will do setup and blocks. Other demos.
I've got a demo of the Azure group syncing ready to go if we got time for it today.
Okay. Other ones, topics. I have a question for recipes.
If there's time, wouldn't mind adding NuGet package, the NuGet package version to the discussion, because I've done some work on that.
Okay. Lots of topics then. Chat. Where's the chat? I'm lost. This chat. Did I miss anything? No. Yes. Complex. Status. Orchard one. What happened? Well, nothing happened during the last week. Oh, we didn't we merge some? Well, stupid me. Maybe some things happened during last week, because I know we merged some pull requests at least. But if I don't fetch, yes. Okay, Jasmine working on the admin theme. He created a bunch of issues to track the missing features. I know Sipke is also looking at it, ensuring everything is beautiful. Checkboxes, missing view. Okay, so work in progress. And this is a pull request. The idea was to render the tag element from article using a tag builder instead of a concrete tag here. This way we can add more classes and things dynamically using the shape. And it's not breaking because it's rendering the exact thing, so it's just fixing stuff. So that was a good to go on 110x. Question. Orchard 2. Orchard 2, 7 days. So this is a block of work on the blocks feature, and I will show you the status. Nick also working on the recipes. There is a pull request for that, and I've commented on that, so he's been actively working on it. That's why I want Daniel's opinion. And so I worked on blocks, which I merged. I will show you the final result. I worked on the setup screen also, and some tag helper, but it's related to setup screen. So let me show you what has been done. Demo time. Start. So there is not an entry now, so I'll hit the setup, which would let me show you first the setup screen, the new setup screen, new, updated. So it used to be an ugly one without any style. Now there is style. I decided to use Bootstrap for the setup screen, and Bootstrap is used, and is part of the setup module. Okay, why? Because it's easier if these styles are embedded in setup module, so we can change anything in other module without impacting this module, and we don't need to enable any other module for the setup to run. In Orchard 1, we need the resources module to be enabled, and maybe the safe mode theme to be enabled, maybe an jQuery also to be enabled. No, jQuery now is part of resources, but at some point we need also jQuery for the setup. So it's better to say when we run the setup, we don't need any module to be enabled by default. So that limits the possibility of issues with other modules or dependencies and on setup. So just including the script and Bootstrap as part of setup, but technically it's using the assets.json, which is pointing to the resource module. Okay, so it's taking the files from the resource module, but it's not enabling the feature. Okay, that's the first thing. So it looks nicer. I would say maybe a little bit nicer than the V1, but at least nicer than what it was before that. So the default the name of the site as before. Okay, database section, based on Bertrand's feedback, I put most of the hints there so that it's lighter on the text box after, instead of repeating because it's obvious what type of database to use. We don't need any hint there. Now it's a drop down with not the connection provider, but a nice name, SQL Server, SQLite. When you select SQLite, it doesn't show up the connection string input, but if you select SQL Server, it shows it. Table prefix as usual, and it's explain one. You can specify a custom table prefix if you intend to reuse the same database for multiple sites. Okay. Connection string as before. I provide the example of the most common, which is SQL Server. This is very useful, so you can do copy paste and change the values you want. I always use that. Super user, explaining the super user intent. The super user has all the rights. It should be used only during setup and for disaster recovery. Okay. Username, email, which is required. Now in Orchard 1 it wasn't required, but there were issues if you tried to edit the super user, then you had to set the email. Now it's required. Password and confirmation, and this validates that. Yeah, I fixed an issue this morning, so you will see. And the validation works. So if I type something wrong, it will tell me that this is mandatory. Password, username, email are mandatory. If the password doesn't match confirmation, it will fail. If the password is not valid in terms of user identity, it will fail. Like, it will tell you need at least one digit, you need at least one uppercase, you need at least one lowercase, and so on. Maybe we should have the default rules there in the hint, or yeah, but there is a file issue about what should be the behavior for the confirmation, so please look at it and comment. So here I will just go through the thing. So SQL Server, test 16, connection string, username, admin, password. Okay, and finish setup. Questions on this screen? On table prefixes, so that we can't create a site with the same prefix on the same database as another existing site. Yes, yes, and it will show, well, yeah, it will fail. No, it won't create it. It will fail because so I went back and forth on this one. Right now it won't fail anymore. It will just it won't fail, but it can't. Can it? Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can fail. I have the exception, so I can do whatever I do in the exception. It's actually there. And I just commented on that. I'm not sure yet what to do. Let me show you. Setup service. I commented on it like 10 minutes ago. This is here. Catch. When we can't initialize the repository, it's either the tables already exist or the database was not found. And I have an issue here, which is that let's say I provide a wrong password. I hit finish setup. The issue is the creation of the user is done after the tables have been created. So if it fails, I go back on the setup screen, and if I hit finish setup, the tables already exist. So it will then prevent me from creating because the table already existed. So I need to fix this. The solution is ready so that the tables get rollbacked if there is a validation error during the setup. Or we do the validation before the tables are created, but there could be an issue during the recipes. So what do we do with the tables then? So this leads me to say that if the tables already exist, don't fail, continue. Maybe they are just empty. So I'm not sure. It's open there. I'm not sure what to do. So save, finish setup, finish setup. And it's done. Go to home index, which is a demo module. This is here. And now I can go to, this will be in the recipes later, but right now, so I need to authenticate with the login and password I defined for the super user. And I can define the theme for the front end and from the back end. And now it looks better. Okay. And setting the default theme will be part of the recipes, and Nika already has that. Hello. So this was the setup screen. If you have any questions, please ask. Then the new feature that I worked on last week was the blocks. So now it's finished. Well, minus all the comments and the improvements and stuff. Well, so if I go to content types, you see the content types, the ones that are created by default by the modules, and I will create a new type that I will call article. Okay, it's nothing to do with an article, but I like to use article. I don't know why. Technical name that I can retype. You saw now it's already integrated. It's rendered dynamically. It's on the client side this time in JavaScript. Create. So article was created. I will add parts title, the title and the body. Save. I didn't break anything. So parts added, I can see the display name which I can change, all the properties from the settings, which are settings driver. Ah, it's ugly, Bootstrap 4 broke my stuff. Ah, it was better with Bootstrap 3. Well, sorry, Bootstrap 4 version 3 and not 4. So here we can see the parts, and I can add named parts. Okay, the named parts are the parts, but I can add them multiple times. So to be able to do that, I need to create named parts. So if I go to content parts, I can create a new part. I can call it address. Create. I can add field to address. Display name field street. Text field. Now it's a radio, okay? Feel free to dislike what I do. Street. Oh, please enter a street value name. Okay, I can add another field. I will call it city text field, and I can add a field. I will call it zip code. Okay. Text field, save. Okay. And now if I go to my type, article, I can add a named part. Oh, address is reusable. I'm torn right now between reusable and named part. I like name part, reusable is historic. Save, and if I go to content types, article edit, I can add a name part, and now I see address. And I can say shipping address, technical name, description, the shipping, the address to ship to. Save. And because it's a name part, I can add another one of the same thing, address, and I will call it billing address, description, the address to bill to. Okay, save. And now my type has one body, one title, one address, shipping address, one address, billing address. Okay, and I reuse the description. And I can save, and it's fine, nothing to save. And if I create a new article, I have the body, I have the title, I have the shipping address. It's ugly. It used to be the dash on the same line. I have the shipping address, which is a block, okay, street, city, zip code, and you see the hint, and another one, billing address, strip, city, zip code. Fine. So the difference between last week and this week is that this block for the part is just showed on the named blocks where they can be ambiguous. So shipping address here, because otherwise we will not distinguish between street and street. But for body and title, we can define a header, but we don't have to. Or we could decide, okay, let's put headers for all the parts, and this way the designer of the part doesn't have to type a text on the field here if it doesn't need to. And it's very easy to change because there is just a shape for that. It's content part.edit, like content.edit, if it can find it. Yes, this one. And this is why it's done. So if named part, okay, and named part is the part definition is reusable, then we render the H5 with the hint and everything. Otherwise, we just don't render it. And if I remove that, if true, then you will see they all have the header. So it's very easy to change. And because the admin theme can be switched, you could have your own admin theme with this custom shape to change how it's done. Any question for that? Yes, we considered it in my head. The issue being the rendering, and I was thinking it can be done actually with a custom part. Name part, where you could actually embed another one and define the cardinality. And it could be done all client side to render custom prefixes and ask the server to render the editor for each of them. So technically, I think it's doable. It's either a custom part or a custom field. I think part will be better here, but yeah, I don't know. But it's not out of the box. It could be, and it should be, I think, a custom one. So far, the only cardinality you can do is add many of them. So now it's rendered, and I want the title on top of the body. So this is what I worked on also last week, is when I go to content types, and I edit the article. And now I can reorder the parts. So I can say I want the title on top of the body. Oh my god, everything is broken. What happened? Ah, because of that? Let me check, 1 sec. If I can fix it. The admin. Should be quick. So if I go back to this, 12.4. Nope, same thing. This is so sad, it was working beautifully. Well, let me check. I think I know where it is. Content types, views, edit, and I have this thing, get element by ID. Fields, parts. Nope, that should work. It's document get element by ID. I don't know what it says, why it says that. Must be HTML element and not, oh, null. Oh, it says it's null. ID parts. I don't know. I will check later. It was working. So the idea is that you see the cursor, you can drag and drop them to reorder them, and then you save, and then when you go to the article, it goes up. And you can do that with all the parts like this, and also with the fields. So when we add a field to the type directly, when I add a, let me show you. If I add a field like color, text field, save. Okay, save. So the field appears in the field section. Okay. But the fields are actually assigned to a part. So right now we can, you see, I'm rendering an article part, which is the same name as the type. So just it contains the fields, and we can reorder the fields of the article to show at the end or the beginning or where you want. It's not field by field, even though it's technically doable. We just need to add more support for that. But at least we can order also the types fields compared to other parts. That's it.
So how does this play with placement.info?
This is setting actually the default placement. So when we go and define an editor, for instance, for the body, which is a part, okay? Let me show you. Body part display. Here, when I'm generating the editor, on the shape, I don't define any location, which means this iDisplay result will have a default location. This one on a display defines location to be that. So it's overriding the default location. So in this case, the default location of iDisplay result will be taken from the settings of the part itself. And yeah, so does it answer?
I guess so. And then you can override that in placement.
Yes. If you say location 0, then it will be, well, sorry, content 0, then it will be at the top of the editor, whatever you say.
Right. But here you're doing it in code, but I mean, if you're doing it in the XML, okay, so it'll be the same.
In the XML,
cool.
You mean in the JSON?
Oh, in the JSON, of course, yes.
Like this. Okay. So yes, and the convention is that when we edit an article, this is actually a zone. This is a zone in the content. So there is a zone called shipping address actually. And the zone is of the type content part edit, which means any other part could inject in the body. Okay, in the body container. So you could have another body editor that will say, oh, inject there just after the body there something. So you can do that. Even though we decided to move the body around other parts, it will keep that. So you can target the main content above all the parts. And this is also why you see the save and publish button. They're always at the end. You can't organize them because these ones are injected by the content driver, always out of the parts zones in the content zone at the end. Like we can also target a new column if we want. It's independent. So these things are custom zones, and by default the location target the part of the shape where they were rendered in. So yeah. That should work. And so the issue that we have now, if I say somebody, but it's not really an issue, we'll see. I can't even type there. Oh yeah. Shipping address, blah, blah. That's weird. Okay, publish. Content items. Okay, and if I want to view on the front end, you see it's completely messed up. So the title is there, then there is the parts here, so it's messed up. So I think we should also by default reflect what the locations are for the editor, like the title at the top and so on. And same thing, the placement can define where they appear, but the placement file, but at least if there is nothing, we should reflect the same thing. Because otherwise, how do we know the title needs to be at the top or the bottom? That's the issue. Good. Questions? Okay. Next. Chris, let me give you access, and then Wesley.
Sebastian, when you say blocks, do you refer to these things you just shown?
Yeah.
So parts and fields and stuff, or?
No,
okay. It's a new name for a part, a reusable part. Okay.
Yes. So historically, the term blocks appears in Drupal and also Craft CMS, which I demoed 3 weeks ago, and then I got the idea. Well, we need that in Ocean, and it seemed like obvious. We need to be able to reuse some blocks of fields and not just a field itself, and reuse the same thing again and again and again at the content type level. So and to be able to compose dynamically these elements. So blocks, I'm not sure block is a good name. Maybe it's a good name, but in the end I implemented it as parts. So it's actually a part technically with a custom metadata, and the custom metadata is handled differently during the edition. And then I call it reusable part, and then I name it name part somewhere. So I'm not sure. So I'm not deciding. It will be whatever we decide together. Name part is more interesting in terms of end user. It's easy to understand. Reusable, maybe also block, maybe. I'm not sure. I think the one I dislike the most is reusable. Actually, it's name is fine because you give it a name. It's a part with a name. Block maybe, but we need to explain what a block is, like we explain what a part and a field is. I'm not sure. So yep. Feel free to vote and express what you think. Sergio, Sam. Yeah, go on, Chris, please.
Hi, everyone. Hello, can people hear?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So 2 weeks ago, I demoed the start of the live preview feature. Since then, I've made a number of behind-the-scenes changes. So I was just going to demo what I've got so far and also ask a couple of questions about the implementation. So for the people who haven't seen it yet, live preview does exactly what you'd expect it to do. So I'm here editing a page. I can click live preview. I get on the right hand side how this page would be rendered. I'm free to resize that, and as I start typing, this page will get re-rendered. So if I change the title, we'll just see the title change. So when I demoed this 2 weeks ago, the way this was working is as the user was making input, there was a little bit of JavaScript that would monitor for changes, make an Ajax call post up to the admin controller for contents, and it would actually insert a record into the database. So to achieve that, we changed the version options. So there's a new version option in there called Live Preview. So the biggest change is since that demo, I've actually got away with the Live Preview version option. And the way this works is when you make a change, this posts up to the contents controller. And instead of inserting into the database and just refreshing this iframe here, what it does is, as part of that post, the controller will create a new content item and then just render it and send the resulting markup down the line. So that change now means that you can't share the live preview URL, but that's fine because 2 weeks ago we talked about the change to kind of create an access nonce to be able to share draft versions for a certain period of time. So you'd be able to press a button and say, make this draft available for 30 minutes on this URL. So it's the implementation of that I'd like to talk about today. Originally, Sebastian suggested that we created a part for that. So since I've started looking into that, I'm not too sure that's the best way to go about it. So what I was going to suggest doing is alter the content item version record. So the content item version record would have a new property on here, access token. And then the item controller, when you want to preview, you could possibly, or optionally, sorry, pass in an access token. And then if you had the access token, it would allow you to view this preview, even if you weren't authorized to preview content. So I don't know what people think about that. As opposed to having the part. Are people happy with it on the content item version record? Can anyone see an issue with that? No, very quiet. So a reason why I did it like that is it's actually got another advantage in the sense that at the moment, because you've got to be logged in to be able to authorize yourself to preview content, you actually can't preview any unauthenticated pages. So the advantage of this way is that even if you're not authorized, if you do have the correct access token, you'll still be able to preview the page and also share that URL around to whoever might need it. The other thing that I was thinking of doing is making the length of the access token, so the validity length of the access token, making that configurable. So there's a couple of options here. We can either do that site-wide as a setting on the site, or we can put something into the UI, possibly a little drop down here that allows you to pick a time frame to get the preview URL for, and that would post off. So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that either.
Define a default one, and yeah, it will be okay for everyone, I assume, as long as it's a setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a question, Chris. So when you live edit, for example, as you did in the title, and it re-renders continuously, if I understood you correctly, that doesn't save any new version for every edit that you do. It just renders
No.
it sort of in line.
That's correct. Yeah.
It saves
So
one
what
version
happens? All
called,
right, so
called
because
the
No, it
live
doesn't.
preview version. No,
It doesn't. It used to do that, but then we talked about not doing that.
Oh, you made it?
So
Okay.
the reason why it used to save it was to allow people to share the live preview URL and to allow you to access it on different devices.
that was going to be my question. When you get that sharing URL, where does it point to? Do you save something at that point when you generate that URL?
No. So the way it works is, let me find the action. Here, so this action here, so it's pretty simple. So when you start typing, whenever there's a change detected, we actually do Ajax post up into this action. So we post all the form data and the content type. It creates a new instance of the content type, updates the editors, and then just renders. So we just got build display with the content item. So this is
Okay, so you can
The reason
only
why I didn't do
you
this
can
at
only share the view if it's saved as a draft, at least.
what's that? Sorry.
You can only share the share link, the share URL,
Yeah.
if it's
So, yeah.
saved.
So that's what we talked about.
It's fine. I'm like,
2 weeks ago.
okay, good. I'm good with that.
Okay. Cool.
Daniel, any objection? You can only.
No.
I mean that's because sharing a live preview is that's
Yeah,
fine.
I think that it doesn't make
It's
sense
too
to
much.
share it
It's too
unless
much.
you've saved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Okay,
good. That's
so
great. That's great. Then I like it.
The final question was if I've got the option here to create a preview URL, which effectively creates this access token and saves it to the content item version record. Should I also be able to do it from
Well,
this page?
Well, you don't need it in the live preview page. You just need it in this page, exactly in there.
Yeah.
Like the clone, yes. Like that's what also was. Like the clone, there is a shared URL or share URL or preview
Yeah.
URL. Yes, the preview and the preview.
Wait a minute, isn't the existing preview button or link here the exact same thing, really?
Preview doesn't create a token. At the same time, the preview could create a token and you could share it, but it's not obvious that you can share it. And you might not
Right.
want to share it. So it has to be a specific action that I want to generate a preview link.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We want to share it with people who are not logged in.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if everyone's happy with that, then
Is there maybe a security concern there that we need that to be a specific permission to be able to generate
Yes,
these URLs?
Definitely. Because you might not want to be able to allow that, or people could, by mistake, do that. So a permission is always good. We can even assign it by default to everyone, but at least if people don't want that, they can remove it.
yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's me done.
But
then.
if you can edit the content, you should be able to do that, because if you can't prevent someone from doing a screenshot and sending it to someone. So the guy who can do the screenshot, meaning if he can edit the content, then he can create shared preview.
True.
Yeah.
Good, that's great. So that's
Okay.
done. Beautiful. And technically, it's also doable in Orchard too, because you don't even create a new version type. That's great. Well, technically, if you don't create a new version type, it's completely compatible with 10x. So that's great. Yep. We should look at Craft CMS more often. Okay. So are you blocked on anything?
No, that's all my questions out of the way.
Oh my God. So you did the callback thing so that the layout can inform that there is a change?
Yeah, I added that in. So yeah, it now. Let me just go back to the page. Because there was also the opposite. There was some fields that you didn't want to re-render. So for example, when you change the permalink, you don't want to re-render. So the way I've got it working at the moment is if you add the class no live preview to your input, it will just ignore it.
Okay.
And likewise, you can there's an event you can raise. There's a JavaScript event you can raise that allows kind of any kind of custom logic to trigger this preview update.
Cool. Yeah, the ultimate demo is when you edit the layout editor and it appears on the right. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I need Sivka's help with that. I tried to do that.
Yeah, that, and then when it's done, if we can have the responsive view of this thing that collapses to one column, like we saw in GraphCMS, it's perfect.
Yeah, well, you can
But-
resize this at the moment, but unfortunately the theme
Yeah,
isn't
that's
responsive.
independent. Yeah, that's a layout module. Yeah, that needs to do that. Yeah, I don't know, Daniel, if you were there when we showed that. So in GraphCMS, they have the same notion as a layout editor, but you don't edit a layout. You add elements before and after, and each element you define if it's on the right, on the middle, on the left, and then it organizes like this on the actual view. And it was very useful on small devices because you don't need to see all the columns in the device. They were all stacked from top to bottom. So Bertrand had the idea to actually have this as a responsive breakpoint in the layout, so that when you reach a specific size, small size, then all the elements are stacked, and you can say, oh, it's on the left. And, well, you can, yeah, with a simple, the same element as you have, you
Yeah.
can say move right, move left, and done, boom.
Yeah, I toyed a lot with that when I built the new editor, but the stumble block I ran into was that you don't, at this point when you're showing the editor, you don't really know what theme you're going to be rendering with, and depending on the theme, you might have different breakpoints and different, number
Yep.
of, and also there's the added complexity of there's a theme selector concept. So even if you know like what theme you're targeting, for every given request, it could be a different one.
Yes, but you have the same issue right now with the editor, and you still define 3 columns, but it was nice because you could see it in the live preview. That's why the combination of the two was nice, because with the live preview,
Oh, yeah, okay.
then
And
you saw
all
what
right.
happened, and it was obvious to move things and where it appeared. So there was not even an issue with the theme selector or the breakpoints, because you resize the live preview at the size you wanted to see how it looks like. And it's even better because you can resize live the live preview. And see
Of
the
course, yeah.
difference.
So it wasn't a matter of resizing the editor; it was resizing the preview. Okay.
Yes, but the fact that because they didn't have your view as the editor, they just had the stacked view. And this is where being able to switch between the stacked view and the drag and drop in the layout view was. You should see you should watch the meeting we did, or play with GraphCMS to understand. And it was, yeah, the combination of the two was perfect. They don't have your editor; they just have the stacked one. So having the stacked and the layout editor plus the live preview is the ultimate experience, I think, for creating content. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think we have another thing. Yes, Wesley?
Yep.
Let me give you access. Done. I think you need to stop sharing, Chris.
It should be good.
Okay, it works. I can see and I'm recording.
Okay.
Context.
All right, so created this module that allows you to set up Azure Active Directory authentication so that you can log into that using Azure Active Directory. It basically overrides all the built-in Orchard authentication. And we wanted a feature to be able to sync. If you were a member of a group in Azure, if that group matched an Orchard role, we wanted to sync those up so that you'd have the same permissions that you needed in Orchard. So let's do a quick demo of the magic in action, and maybe hit some code highlights if we got time. But so I got the module enabled, got my settings done. Take a look at my users first, just to prove that this is real. Not my user settings, my actual users. So I got 3 users in here right now. I'm going to log into the different one so you can see what happens. So we'll log out. This is my Active Directory setup for testing this. I'm going to log in with this one. It's a member of the contributor group. So we're here. And we have dashboard access as a contributor. So that's really about it as far as what it does. So you'd given me some code from the Microsoft employee that looked like this. This is the kind of the meat of that, where he has this Graph API persistence service where he does a lot of things really more manually with the Graph API. And there's actually a Graph API client library that's used in a lot of the AD samples. So I put that into use. This is what that looks like, and it's static because we have to set some of these parameters from middleware so that we can keep this token valid, since they only last for an hour in Azure. And that.
Isn't it an issue is static? There's always a solution to make it not static.
I've tried a few things. I've not got it worked out yet.
Well.
There probably is.
The issue is that if it's static, then it's not multi-tenant compatible.
Yeah, so I'll have to work on that one. It should be doable. I just haven't spent the time to get it done yet.
At least a dictionary of string static, of string, so that you can index pertinent when you set the value.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
We'll work on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't think of that one. And then, so when we get that set up, but right now, there's a piece of middleware that runs that checks, if it doesn't have one, it creates one against the Azure Graph API, and if it's about to expire, we get a new one. And then we have a Graph API service interface. It just has these 2 methods right now. There's a number of things we can add to this that pull stuff from the Graph API as we need it, and they just kind of look like this. So we can get the user groups, we can get the user, and then the actual persistence just gets called on the login callback, so we sync these. I think I got to do some refinement here. This will actually create duplicates if I log in again. And the other case that I didn't handle, I don't know how important it is to handle, but if you go into Azure and say remove a user from that group, this doesn't handle that. It will not remove the role from the Orchard user at the next time they log in. So I should figure out a way to make sure that's in place.
Okay.
And other than that, with this module, there's a few quick, nice-to-have features that I can add to it. I've done a lot of work with token authentication. There's a setting for it right now on this module. Doesn't really do anything because it just didn't get added or it got overlooked. But that's simple to add, and also sliding expiration on logins. Azure Active Directory allows up to 24 hours, so you can make that a setting if you want to enable sliding expiration. Pick a value from 1 to 24 for hours, and you'll have sliding expiration in your app.
That's great.
That's pretty much it.
Next, do you want to file issues on what's next to be done, or merge it to a branch? I can create a branch for that if you want.
So there was a branch on there. Azure Auth that I started working off of, and I've kept it in track with the development branch of Orchard. So.
But when you mean your branch, is on your repository or it's on Orchard's repository?
There was an Azure Auth branch on the Orchard repository. I forked it and have been working off that branch and keeping in line with the upstream dev branch of Orchard. So, I mean, I can create a pull request to that branch or whatever we want to do.
Yep. Create a pull request on that branch. We can merge it even if it's not final, but at least it's there. And then we can work on this one. And people can also create pull requests again on top of that.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Question, Wesley?
Sure.
If I'm building a module that wants to take a dependency on this one, and what it wants to do is to use this authenticated user session and call out to some external service with that same identity, is there like an API to your module that will allow my code to get access to the token I need to ask Azure AD for the token that that I need to authenticate to that external system?
Okay, explain your use case there. If you're
right.
If you had maybe
so imagine I have Orchard as part of like a bigger system architecture, which is actually a case I'm working on, and we want to authenticate all users against Azure AD as you're doing. But not only do we want to allow them access into Orchard, but we want also Orchard server-side code to be able to call out to other systems using that same already established user identity. On behalf, exactly. And there's ways in Azure AD to do this. You can basically have your code like call back to Azure AD and have it give you an access token to that external system. Then you can sort of like do a secondary back-end OAuth flow. But I think what will be required here is that stuff being exposed by your code so that other code could kind of piggyback off of it.
Like creating a document on Office 365 from your module, not from his module. Yeah. So you must have the token somewhere, some way to get it. And if you just need a service, just create an interface.
Sure.
And then people who will depend on your module, reference your module, and just resolve this interface that will provide it.
Yeah.
That's very easy.
The only, I mean, then people would probably have to configure whatever app they have that represents Orchard in Azure Active Directory to have access to those other services, right?
Yeah, that's a configuration step that you do like
so
as an admin.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfectly possible. That's like we said, make an interface for it, make it available. But I should have all that information.
That'd be great. Then we can use this.
Cool.
Looks very good, by the way.
Thank you.
That's great. Great demos again. Mine were better, but you know that. Yeah, we don't have Rob. We don't have any. We're still talking. Yep. Okay. Good and on time. Perfect. Any other questions? Rob, I hear you. Robs, I hear you. Any other question, topic?
What would be your best guess?
A Monday? That's today my best guess.
A Monday on 1st of October?
Too early. First of October? Yeah, so I don't know. So, yep. 17th. Yes, a Monday. I don't know. It's still to be decided. Sorry.
All right.
Questions for Daniel? Yeah, the topics, Daniel, you see? You need... Daniel, recipes too. So, and for everyone, by the way. Nick has been working on... let me share. Nick has been working on...
Unfortunately, I gotta dash, Sebastian, because I got another
next
call.
week. Next week.
Yeah, next week.
Bye. Thank you. And you get also
Thanks.
next week. Sorry. Okay, so the two topics were for Daniel. But I will share the recipes topic with everyone until next week because So the idea is that Nick has been working on recipes. There's been some changes compared to O1 to Orchard 1, and the question is, how different should it be for Orchard 1? What do we need as a recipe service? Without even thinking of what Orchard 1 was doing, like if it's doing something we don't need, we don't implement that. Yeah, the question is about what do we save in the database when a recipe is executed? Can we stop a recipe in the middle and continue it later? Can we share a recipe between multiple servers? Many things like that. Right now, the implementation that he did is, and also based on my feedback, like I asked him to simplify a lot, which might be a mistake, but I like when it's simple. So the idea is now there is, let me check the code. How do I see the code from that? I can't see the code from, I can just see the file changed. So this won't help a lot. So the idea being there is a recipe engine. You can send the recipe to the recipe engine and it will be executed asynchronously, meaning when you call execute async, okay, maybe not this one. When you execute a recipe, you get an execution ID, like today, but the recipe will run in a background task. Well, in another thread. Okay, not a background task as an background task, but in a background task. The recipe will run. And it's up to you who sent to your code, who asked for the recipe to run, to poll the execution to get the status, like running or done, or have any more information, like what step it's currently executing. Okay. The idea being that when you run a setup, for instance, or a command, you don't have to set a big timeout to your setup. You just start the recipe and you poll the server to say, just need to mute some people. I don't know. So, and you just poll the server to know what the status of the recipe is. So the setup doesn't need a timeout because the JavaScript will just poll and poll and poll again to get the execution. And even if the setup takes 10 minutes, then the setup screen will last 10 minutes. And then when it's done, you get it. And so this is the first thing. The second thing is that every time a step is executed in a recipe, the step is stored as a document in the database. And you can also, and when the recipe is also executed, there is a document explaining that the recipe is currently running. So you can query the database or a service which will query the database. You can query the service to ask what the recipes are running, and also then to get the status of each recipe. And you can also query the database for previous recipes which are done and their steps to get some sort of logging, like events of the recipe. Okay, so we store every event as a separate document so that whenever you update a recipe which is running, you don't need to save all the events that were passed. You just add a new event that is done to the recipe, to the storage. And we also store a document to explain the recipe itself so that you can query the running recipe and the done recipe. Okay, so that's almost the only thing. And then Nick was asking about how to schedule a recipe. Well, scheduling is for the workflow module. So you can have a workflow activity that will trigger a recipe. That's fine. And you could wait for the recipe to be done or just end the workflow because the recipe is done. You could also have a recipe in the jobs queue. So you can say there is a recurring, or you want to run 3 recipes one after the other, you add them to the jobs queue and the recipe engine will be the same. It doesn't have to care about the scheduling. Or you could have a background task as a recipe. So you create your own background task which will run recipes. So every 5 minutes the same recipe will run again and again. So then the recipe engine doesn't have to care about these aspects. It's just delegating. So that's the idea of the current implementation of the recipes in Orchard 2. It's recorded, so I hope that Daniel will be able to hear all of that because he worked on the recipe module. Maybe Sipke, if you have anything to say, or anyone else.
I heard everything. I heard everything because my meeting's running late, so good.
Yeah, think about it and please send your comments to Nick and I or the forum.
Command line support is infinitely important.
Same
for
thing.
this.
It's just it will run. Yeah. Well, it's independent from the command line, but yeah, it will have to be supported. Sure. And also be able to have templated recipes. So you can send parameters to the recipe. So your recipe can say something like $variable. So you can have a recipe as a template, and you reuse the same template again and again with different parameters from the command line, from another recipe, and so on. So when you include a recipe from a recipe, you can pass parameters. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's very good, because today we're kind of doing manual replace in recipes just to parameterize them in automatic deploy scenarios and things. So that'd be helpful.
Good. So if you agreed with everything, that's what we are currently doing. Perfect.
JSON schema for recipes would be awesome too.
Yep, but every recipe step will have to provide their own schema. That's hard because...
Not really. Can't you have like you do an XML schema where you have extension points where you can allow any schema to be incorporated, but the overall structure is schematized?
Look at what a recipe looks like right now. Oh, I have another maybe parallel discussion. I was thinking this weekend, sorry. The issue with the JSON we have in recipes. Let me show you the JSON. I don't know if you can see something. This is what a recipe looks like right now. So slow. So a recipe has a steps array. Each element in the array is a recipe step. It has a name property, and then every property that the recipe needs. So as a schema, you can't say that steps can have enable property. Okay? You see what I mean? It's not like feature that's the issue.
This is true, but I was more looking for something like what the Azure Resource Manager schema does, which is to define the overall structure of the JSON file, and then it kind of leaves empty spaces where resources can plug in their own schema.
Yeah, but in this case, the only thing which is not empty is these 10 attributes. Everything else is specific. I'm afraid of that. Also, it's very JSON-y, so because it's JSON. We might have a broader discussion or just shut me down, which is I kind of like YAML a lot for these kind of things. It's less JSON-y, but it's compatible with JSON. So I'd like to reopen discussion about using YAML more often. By the way, just as a side note, YAML is compatible with JSON. A JSON document is valid YAML. So saying that we support YAML doesn't mean that you can't use JSON actually. If you didn't know that. YAML is a superset of JSON. Crazy, right? That's it. Just one. So think about it. Thanks everyone. That's it. Good? No more questions? I will save the chat. I have saved everything because I've seen many questions and comments from Sergio also about the parts. Very opinionated, so I will look at that. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday or Tuesday. Bye.